know that Kama Sutra has tremendous positive impact on our mental health?
What? Kama Sutra? I didn't know that. Tell me more.
Well, I'm not lying. But first, do you want to hear what the people of High Wycombe had to say about Kama Sutra?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's take a look at this.
Sorry?
Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra.
Kama Sutra? I have the book somewhere.
I think if it helps the individual, that's fine. Yeah, it all depends on the individual. If they like doing it and enjoy doing it, why not?
I don't know what should say about this because it's a topic which is we are not allowed to discuss in public and all that stuff.
Most forms of sex can relieve stress, yes, yeah.
I don't know much about it, so I don't know the benefits or anything, but I would love to learn about it though.
I don't believe in any of that. I'm a Christian, I believe in God.
Culturally, a great thing to know about.
A bit of knowledge I have about Kama Sutra. It's like it's a sex education.
I know what it is, but that's about it. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Yeah, not really a mother-daughter conversation.
I heard about it, but I think I'm not able to express it.
Kama Sutra, that's a bit saucy, isn't it? What sort of question is that to ask an old woman?
That was something.
Isn't it interesting to hear from different cultures?
I agree. To find out more, we invited Foca Yariv, who has 22 years of experience teaching Kama Sutra, and he also designs courses about it.
Welcome, Foca.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, what did you think of that VT? Were you surprised about the reactions?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think this is very much what is nowadays in the society. We have very little interest in the depth of the erotic education, and most people unfortunately get that form of education from the internet. I have a feeling that half of the people there lied about, oh, I don't know anything about it. I do think they do know a lot about it, but it's being kept in the shadow, and this is why it causes so much inner friction and tension, and it's something which is very natural, and still you see people getting all, what do you ask me about that?
So can you tell me how the interpretation of Kama Sutra has changed over time?
Well, the Kama Sutra was originally written more or less 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
Imagine a manual like in the school that was written 2,000 years ago. It needed some update. Then it was the Koka Shastra in the 11th century, then later on the Anangaranga, 14th century, the Senden Garden, and it's constantly been updated. It's being brought to the West only in 1883 by Richard Borton, who translated it. It was against the law to print it, so he printed only 100, and then it became a hit, obviously. And it was a hit without the pictures, yeah, just the text. So it was a hit, and then gradually it grew, but only in the 60s, with the revolution that happened there, with the freeing of the boundaries, it became something that became so popular, and it's one of the best-selling books. I think it's competing with the Bible, and the book everybody has, nobody reads.
Oh my God.
So it sounds like Kama Sutra isn't just about sex then.
No. It's about living a fulfilled life. The first chapter of the Kama Sutra defines 4 levels of fulfillment. Artha, the fulfillment of your life in the most basic needs. So you have food and shelter and a good life. Kama is the fulfillment of your erotic and social life. Dharma, the fulfilling of the meaning of your life and the way you interact with the world. And all this, when put together, will lead to a spiritual fulfillment. And if this talk is about mental health, any form of disease and that level is a form of unfulfillment. If you're unfulfilled because you don't have meaning to your life, then you get depressed. If you're unfulfilled because you haven't had a relationship, or erotically you feel a bit clumsy, which happens to many men. You feel a bit clumsy, you don't know how to do, you cannot express yourself, then you will be unfulfilled, and out of that will be all the consequences.
I see. So can you explain what the mental health benefits of Kama Sutra would be then?
Well, they are enormous. And just think about the fact that an area in our life that we never explored, we are supposed to perform. How can you be good in something that you never learn how to be good at?
That's true.
And you are not even allowed to speak about it really very comfortably with anybody. And then you still want to study, and means of education are very limited. And unfortunately, the world of pornography is the worst place to learn. And then the Kama Sutra represented a manual. The problem is it's a manual that needs decoding, because if you read it, it's like, what on earth are they talking about? All these positions, scratching with the nails, it has a unique code that needs a certain guidance for it to be applicable in today's world. And this is why the workshops in yoga, tantra, the Kama Sutra all come together, because they support people in learning about this fundamental aspect of their life.
I mean, of course, we can tell that you're an expert in this field and you know so much about it. But how did you first sort of discover the Kama Sutra?
Well, I discovered yoga and tantra because my mother called my brother to tell him to come and save me when I was 17, because she thought I'm going to be a reckless teenager. And then when I learned about it at the age of 17, the big revelation was that the sex is very different than the erotic experience. There are actually two different energies that we have in our being. The sexual behavior is a bit instinctual. The erotic behavior is something refined and beautiful. And I learned the difference between having sex, which is a bit similar to grabbing a burger, which you just want to fulfill a need quickly, to making love. It's a radical shift, which then manifests obviously in the bedroom, but not only in the bedroom, as it incorporates a way of living, which is much more sensual, fulfilling, nuanced. That was my, in short, the way I discovered it.
Can you tell us any more about like the historical context of the Kama Sutra?
The tale of the Kama Sutra goes like this.
Yeah.
This is that one morning, at the entrance of the king's chapel, appeared a naked lady. And she said, I'm not going to move from here until I find a man who satisfies me. Now, all the guards were looking, and they said, well, we cannot do it. And then they went to ask the minister looked at them, we cannot do it. Then they went to ask the king realized he cannot do it. So they, what to do? I mean, it's a naked woman. She said, I'm not putting my clothes on until I meet a man. So they put around the kingdom there, a man is needed, and some came to pursue the task, left without success, until a wanderer came, had entered the room, and after a few hours she came dressed, and they were both about to leave. And the guards caught that man, brought him to the king, and said, you're not going anywhere, you're going to write a book. So this is a bit more of a folkloric tale of how it was written. But it was written to help people because it's an area we need education.
Of course, yeah.
So that, I mean, it was written in North India. It's an author called Vatnyasa. He's a very mysterious author. We don't really know much about it or the context of it. We just know it was fundamental for any library in India to have that book. Wow. That's what Richard Burton described in the 19th century.
That is incredible. So how does the principles of Kama Sutra boost sort of self-confidence and body positivity?
Well, first and foremost, to practice the Kama Sutra, we all can because we all have a body. So that's very simple. And it doesn't judge. It doesn't put only that people can practice the Kama Sutra. Practice the Kama Sutra is for anybody who have this interest in them. And back then, that wasn't the idea of this is the only shape. Like very much in the 20th century with the whole fashion industry, we kind of indoctrinated to think that thin is beautiful, basically. I mean, that was kind of the way it was described. And there it was described that people who are fulfilled and understand the value of their body treat it as a temple. And this is the way they will relate it. So they break the whole mechanism of, I'm inadequate, I'm a bit too much here, too little here, and so forth. When you relate to your body as a temple, which you come to worship one another in the act of love, it's a radical shift.
Wow. I'd be really interested to know, what do you teach about masculinity and mental health generally?
Well, in the case of masculinity, we need to relate to a massive problem. I mean, the number of suicide in the case of men is 5 times more than in the case of women. Wow. A lot of it is coming from the lack of meaning and for the lack of erotic fulfillment. Now, for example, there is a quarter of the men under the age of 40 who have performance issues, a quarter of the men who feel insecure in that area in their life. And that makes it so that for many men, they have an awkwardness around that moment. As well because they always compare themselves to what they see in the porn industry, which is unfortunately men who look like they're going to battle and they are like a sewing machine. And it's unfortunate. They compare themselves and say, but I don't feel like this. I cannot behave like that. And because of the distance, there is an anxiety, a performance anxiety. So first and foremost, we teach the men to understand the core value of masculinity and gradually to transform the way they relate to the act. That's why I said the shift from sex to eros, which is much bigger than this show will allow us to explain, is fundamental for men because it's not about showing off, it's about offering love.
Of course, thank you.
What is the impact of toxic masculinity on men's mental health, do you think, then?
Well, many men don't know what it means to be a man nowadays. And they feel a little bit aggressed sometimes because there is a lot of, you cannot, toxic masculinity, you cannot behave like this, you cannot behave like this. And they are a bit stuck. I have hundreds of men in the last decade that came and said that they don't even know how to ask a girl out. I say, if I go, am I overriding her? If I don't go, what do I mean? It's became very clumsy. And then sometimes they feel to express themselves and they don't really know how. And I mean, it creates an inner tension. And it comes because they aren't really centered in who they are. They try to go through a model and all those models aren't really them. We lack archetypal forms of models of masculinity nowadays. This is why there's a lot of confusion. Part of it is toxic masculinity. Part of it is the fact that people don't know anything about masculinity and they just feel a little bit confused even by the concept of it.
No, I feel like I've learned so much here.
Yeah, me too.
So many different things that I didn't really know about it, and we should have so much more confidence in talking about it. So,
of course, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming here and having that discussion with us, and for joining us.